Hi, this is Lauren Cheek from Lornicopia, and it is February 23rd, 2020. And today I'm going to talk about the coronavirus. On January 9th, the first reported death from Wuhan, China hit the news, and I immediately started watching the coronavirus, and I started posting about it on my Facebook page. I haven't done anything on YouTube yet because, there was a lot of missing information, and there still is, about this virus. But my brother and I were doing statistics that first week, and we realized at the rate of infection as it was going through the first week of the supposed outbreak and deaths, that it was increasing daily at infection rates of about 25%. I figured 22.35, something around that. My brother figured out 25%. Also, I posted something about an AI model, artificial intelligence model, that looked at the projection of this virus and how it could possibly spread and how many people it could infect and possibly kill. And it came to the same conclusion that we did. Of course, we were making our statistics based upon infection without any immunity, and infection resulting in serious illness and death. But anyway, so a month ago, Wuhan and other parts of China were put under quarantine. It was about a 60 million person quarantine. And around that time, it was about 2 weeks after the first death, reports started leaking out of China on social media, through their essential social media website, and through reporters from the outside, and through individuals uploading video and stuff of the virus. So people have asked me at work, for instance, what is a coronavirus? Why is it called coronavirus? So that's the first thing I'll deal with. It is called a coronavirus. Coronaviruses come from animals, and they are species hoppers. They can jump from a wild animal to a domestic animal, to a human being. For instance, MERS, which was Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, which is also a coronavirus, was quite deadly. And it came from camels to human beings, they deduced. SARS, which was severe acute respiratory syndrome, broke out a couple of years ago in China as well. And they assumed that it probably came from a bat. And the reason why they thought it was a bat was because they were eating bats, sort of as a delicacy, I guess. They also eat civets as a delicacy. But in some of these markets in other countries, what you'll get, especially in Asia, maybe in Africa, places like that, where they're more likely to eat game animal or wild animals, is you will get a stack of cages in a marketplace that are stacked on top of each other, and these animals are in there, different species of animals, and then they are urinating and defecating on each other. And then when you go to clean them, you're coming into close contact with them, and if a virus jumps, then it jumps from that animal to a human being, and then it spreads from human being to human being once the virus has gained a stronghold. So this particular coronavirus is particularly scary because we know nothing about it. We don't know how long its incubation period is. We've found that people can pass it on without having symptoms. That people, like yesterday, I read that a guy in Wuhan had been infected for 27 days before he showed any symptoms. So what we're seeing now, as of yesterday, the day before, earlier into this week, is it's spread beyond the quarantine in China, which has been taking place for several weeks. And also air flight has not been going in and out of China. And we've been quarantining people around the world that have been in and out of China that have contracted this virus. But we're finding that it is spreading either previous to that quarantine and sort of incubating for a longer period of time, like it did in Iran and Italy, and then finally manifesting itself. Or it could possibly be living on a surface of something shipped from China. We don't really know. Flu viruses supposedly can live up to 9 days on a surface if they're not disinfected. So it's really a big question mark right now as to how this coronavirus is spreading when there's been a quarantine and China's gone on lockdown. And what my brother and I had said to each other was, it's extremely fortunate and very laconic and draconian of China to put whole provinces under a quarantine, but they are also intelligent enough to realize that if this thing were infectious and deadly at a rate that we don't understand yet, that it could, we did the math, it could kill the world's population at a slower rate entirely within months. It definitely couldn't infect most of the world's population if China had not created that barrier for the spread. It would have infected a lot of the world's population very rapidly within a couple of months. And you would have seen literally at a 2% death rate, millions upon millions, if not billions of people that got sick and or died from this virus. So that's why it's so serious. But coronaviruses are called coronaviruses because in Latin, corona means crown. And if you've ever seen a slow motion photograph capture a drop of water dropping into another body of water or milk splashing into a bowl, and when it splashes, it peaks up like a crown. That's why they call it coronavirus. The actual structure of the virus has a crown-like appearance when it's put under a microscope. So that's why it's called coronavirus. Also, it seems to be an airborne contagion, which was a problem with the cruise ships, because if you look at any of the video or the pictures of the cruise ships, people were actually going out on their balconies and talking to each other across a barrier and breathing and or coughing on each other. So it was definitely just a potential breeding ground to spread that disease. So that was a mistake, and that's why we're bringing them all home. We're also bringing them home because, you need to be able to have the best medical care to try to prevent the spread of this virus. And it is very disconcerting that if it makes it into Africa, which one of the cruise ships went to Cambodia, they let everybody off the ship to go to the hotels and to spread around 100 miles from the port. And then the next day they found out someone was infected. And we have no idea what's happening in Cambodia right now. But that is the bad news. The good news is people are surviving this. And the other good news is there have to be people that have an immunity. I mean, surely a human being's eaten a bat before. Some of us in our genetic pool would have some sort of a resistance to it, even people in China. So what I'm going to show you is an interesting little website called Worldometer. And on this website, they're tracking the coronavirus. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show this to you because you can also see what's happening and where the infections are occurring. You can load it up on your phone. So I'm turning it around. This is Worldometer, as you can see right here. And what it does is, if you look down here, I'm going to let it focus. It tells you how many corona deaths there are this year. Now, if you look at the seasonal flu has killed 71,249 people. That's very concerning as well, and flu is very contagious just like this virus is. But we do have some vaccinations for the flu, and the problem is if we had a bird flu or some huge flu, it would be doing and creating the exact same response that we were getting here with the coronavirus, because if we were not ahead of that flu with a vaccine, we'd have to scramble for months and months to get it under control. And you don't want an epidemic like the Spanish flu, which infected everyone, large amounts of population all over the world and killed a large amount of the world population. But right here, it shows you what the world population is. It shows you births, deaths this year. It shows you coronavirus deaths. And let me see if I can page on to coronavirus. I think when I go to coronavirus, it's going to show you by country infections and things like that are showing up now. So this is it. 78,993 people were infected. 2,470 deaths. So that's from January 9th till now when we started tracking it. This is how many people worldwide. But I think if I go down here, it's going to show you active cases in mild condition, serious or critical. This is how many deaths. And then 23,000 people have recovered, which is nice. We hope that they're recovering. They're not just in remission spreading around. We do not know this yet because we don't even understand how this virus is spreading or how it reacts. But this is another interesting aspect. It shows you corona cases by country, new cases, total deaths, new deaths as of the last update, which updates twice a day, total recovered, and those in serious and critical condition. So if you look down here, like China, Beijing airport flies out about 280,000 people a day. It's not doing it right now because they're on lockdown. The Atlanta airport where I live is the biggest airport in the world, I think, and it flies out 300,000 people a day. So you can imagine how much of a problem this would be if they had not gone on quarantine, because they'd be shipping 300,000 people around every day, daily, millions of people a year, spreading this virus around. It's the same thing in Atlanta. Atlanta has approximately 6 million people in what we call metropolitan Atlanta. And then there are probably another close to 2 million that live on the perimeter and outlying areas that are not considered metropolitan Atlanta, making up a population roughly of 8 million people that may go in and out of the city at any given time. 300,000 people a day that fly in and out on business. We have millions of people that travel in and out of the city by car, by truck, shipping, train, and as tourists. So as you can imagine, a lockdown was the smartest and most conscientious thing that China could have done. And they really did us a favor by slowing this down and giving us some time to potentially get some ground on this virus. Now that it's outbreaking, though, you'll see Iran started the other day and it had something like 2 cases. It now has 2 deaths with 43 people infected. Okay, and then it's going to show you the recovery. We don't have any results on them, probably because they don't have anything to report. Also, you could get into the situation like in Africa, which I don't see a lot of Africa on here yet, where they only had 2 labs within the country, not the country, the continent of Africa, who could test for this virus. And that was only because they've dealt with Ebola. All right, now they have 11. But for instance, some of the countries in Africa were trying to keep their borders open to China because China does a lot of trade with the world and it would hurt their economy. Meanwhile, potentially spreading this virus. And we may not know what's going on in Africa for weeks from now till it pops up. Also, if the gestation period is much longer than we suspect, it could be that we see gradual explosions of cases where there was none before, like we are seeing in Iran. Now, in the United States, we have no deaths, but we brought back all the people from the ships that were in bad condition. And then we distribute them around, like in Omaha, Nebraska. There are some in California. We have Emory here. I don't know if anybody's here at Emory yet. I think they took them to Nebraska first because they dealt with the last Ebola outbreak and were very efficient at doing that. But anyway, you can see like where all the cases are coming up, and you can clock how this thing is growing every day. They even give you graphs. Fatality rate is 2%, which is what I figured. Transmission rate is 2 people to 3, I guess is what they're saying. They're saying the incubation is 2 to 4 days, but now they've updated to 27 days, which is something I also anticipated, and I have posted on my Facebook regularly, that we don't know how long the incubation period is on this. It can lie dormant in your system, and then suddenly you get weakened or tired or whatever, and then suddenly it shows up, because we build antibodies to lots of different viruses. For instance, you have chicken pox or those kind of things. You do build up an antibody, and it might creep up later as shingles, and then you'll be contagious again to people who've never had chickenpox. So we're looking at this. We're watching it seriously. This is Lauren Cheek from Laurencopia. You now may watch it on Worldometer, as well as you're Googling in the news and everything. But if you want to know how serious this is, just look in the infection rate and realize that that's under quarantine. And then look at the other countries that have been out of contact with China since January 23rd for the most part, and that are now showing cases as of the week of February 20th. And of course, this is what I kind of do in my spare time. It's intellectual. It's fascinating. We've been waiting for something big. like this for many years is what we all prepare for. Conspiracy theorists that wonder why the government is hoarding body bags and stuff get creeped out by that. What are you going to do with dead bodies? Especially if they're transmitting a disease. You need to be prepared. So I always say it's creepy, but it's fascinating. And it is the way that the world is. And in a bigger, broader picture, you have to think with a population of 78,993 people as of this moment, which that thing ticks up and down all the time, usually up. We have a lot of people in this world, and it's very scary. And we travel all over the place by plane, by boat, by ship, by car. So it's reasonable concern. It's not here in the United States yet as an outbreak of any kind, but what we're seeing in Europe and parts of Asia and the Middle East is concerning as well, because it does make you wonder if it could be here and we just don't know it. So what can you do to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus? Well, the first thing is if you find out that you have it, they're doing testing for it now quite regularly. You have to self-quarantine, ideally, and not get out and see anybody else and not breathe on anybody else or be around anybody else. And you also would want to, like with all viruses and stuff, it never hurts to wash your hands. This thing's probably airborne and spreading, but it never hurts to wash your hands, not touch your face and your eyes. If you do, wash your hands before you do it, wash your hands afterwards. I work in a restaurant. We have all kinds of health codes that we have to abide by. I've been working in restaurants since I was 18 years old, and I've rarely ever gotten sick because I constantly wash my hands. I handle people's plates, saliva, all kinds of stuff. I wash my hands every time I touch something someone else has touched, which sounds severely OCD, but it's kept me healthy. So good luck. I'll try to keep you posted. I hope that helped you to understand what a coronavirus is, how it was possibly spread. There's also a conspiracy theory that it could have come from a lab, like a biological warfare lab. And the honest to God truth is anything's possible. If we had an outbreak here of something like this in Atlanta, the CDC is 6.5 miles from my house. That's why that's why they staged The Walking Dead here, because it's a good location for something to accidentally spread. We don't know that that's the case. I'd say it's more probable that it came from somebody storing animals in a very unhygienic sort of way, and then they ate it or they got exposed to it via slaughtering, etc., etc. But anyway, here we are, 76,000 cases later. And I looked at coronaviruses instead of world population. So let me update you on the world population, because world population is actually not 78 billion. I just realized that. It is 7 billion. That was a misquote and a misread. And I didn't have my glasses on because I'm vain. But there it is. See it ticking? 7,766,412,531, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 31. People getting born and dying while we're watching this tick away. All right. I'll leave you with that. Lauren Cheek from Lornacopia. Talk to you next time on whatever subject comes up if we're all here and alive.